This episode of the Old Dogs REI Network is brought to you by Mino Studio.
In a world where jobs are how most people make money, one man, one desire, one challenge dares to break the mold. Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where we don't work for money. Money works for us. Coming soon. Viewer discretion advised.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where cash flow is king. Real estate investing, the means, so you can enjoy your retirement dreams. This is the show where we cut right to the chase. No sales pitch, no long monologues, just simple how-to real estate investing advice, so you can earn the passive income you need to enjoy your retirement today. And now, your host and chief old dog, Bill Manacero.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network. I'm your host, Bill Manacero, and this is a show where 50-plussers and anyone else who wants to join us get solid, no sales pitch real estate investing advice to help generate real cash flow. This podcast airs twice weekly on Mondays and Fridays, and if you aren't already a subscriber, go to iTunes or Apple Podcasts, type in Old Dogs, spelled D-A-W-G-S, find our podcast and subscribe. Well, we got a great show for you today. We have a definite real estate investing vet here, and I'm talking about Kent Clothier. And as the founder and CEO of Real Estate Worldwide, or also known as REWW, a multifaceted real estate education company with headquarters in La Jolla, California, Kent Clothier educates and empowers customers using a curriculum steeped in award-winning and proven real estate systems used by Clothier and his team. Kent's company operates three core businesses that are part of REWW. He has the REWW Academy, an online real estate training platform, SMART, all capitals there, an online marketing platform that provides access to data to create lead lists for buyers, sellers, and private money, and his exclusive brand, 1-800-SELL-NOW, for local lead generation. REWW also operates an exclusive private mastermind for more than 150 real estate professionals that meets quarterly, called the Boardroom Mastermind. Before REWW, Clothier was part of Memphis Invest, a family-run real estate company based in Memphis, Tennessee. That's one of the largest real estate investment companies in the country, having bought and sold more than 5,000 residential investment properties. When Kent is not spending time with his wife Seema and their children at their beach home in La Jolla, California, or on frequent family vacations, you can often find him following his other life passion of speaking at national real estate, entrepreneurial, or personal development events and trainings. Wow, well, that's quite a mouthful. Welcome, Kent, to the Old Dogs REI Network.
Hey, man, it's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure to have you on. Well, I kind of gave an overview, at least of what you've been doing recently, but our folks, I'm sure, would love to hear your story and how you even got into real estate in the first place. If you don't mind going back a few years and sharing your background.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So as of this year, I just turned 50. So I'm going to go back a few years here and kind of share a little bit. When I was 17, I started in business, and I started with my father in what is effectively an arbitrage business. So clearly this is pre-internet, pre any of that kind of stuff. And we were in the grocery industry. We were buying and flipping truckloads of surplus supply, effectively, from manufacturers that would go and try to sell, excess inventory into grocery stores and wholesalers, distributors all over the country. And when the moment they would do that, trying to get rid of this supply by discounting the prices. Well, they were creating serious price discrepancies coast to coast, and they were creating massive opportunity. So you can imagine in a grocery store, there's 40,000 items, and every one of those items, if a case of Gatorade is being sold for $40 a case in Miami, but it's being sold for $80 a case in New York City, and it's the exact same item, it doesn't take very long to figure out that there's an opportunity there. And so when I was 17, we started figuring out a way that we could buy truckloads of groceries in one market, throw them on a truck, ship them to another market, never manufacture a single thing, and basically make the spread.
That's a great business idea.
And wouldn't you know it, that idea just worked. So by the time I was 23 years old, I was running a $50 million a year company. When I was 26, we were purchased by a much larger competitor out of Boca Raton, Florida, my dad retired, and we quickly moved me down to Boca Raton, Florida to start running the much larger organization. So by the time I was 27, I was running an $800 million a year company that, through some pretty unique strategies, turned into, $1.8 billion by the time I was 30, and seventh largest privately held company in the state of Florida. So that company still exists, but I'm obviously no longer there. When I was 30 years old, March 14th of 2000, in fact, I had a run-in with my new owners, new partners, and we'd been together for a while, but I had clearly seen all the success that had happened under my guidance and felt very much entitled to get my equity back into the company, because again, they purchased my company years before, and so I wanted to try to get back in the game, and saw how much we had grown, and got into a little disagreement about whether that was going to happen or not. And wouldn't you know it, I walked out of there kind of in a huff and spent the next 2 years losing every single thing I had built. And so you can imagine, from the time I was 17 till the time I was 30, building a $2 billion a year company, I had all of the luxuries of that kind of success, the income, the houses, the cars, you name it, right? I had, quite frankly, never failed at anything up to that point in my life, but very, very fortunate that, again, walking out of there and going down a path and being a little too big for my britches and thinking I could go off and just, recreate something all on my own and do it, kind of in spite of my previous partners was a really valuable lesson for me. It humbled me like nothing else ever in my life. Again, going from millions of dollars to less than $4,000 in the bank in 22 months, and burning every relationship and bridge on the way down was exactly what I needed, but you could never have told me that in that moment. And so when I finally had reached rock bottom and was struggling in every possible area of my life, divorced, etc., I stumbled into real estate via an infomercial. I saw some guys talking about that you could flip houses with no money and no credit and all this kind of good stuff. And I was just broke enough and desperate enough to go check it out. Went down to the Embassy Suites in West Palm Beach, Florida, downtown, and went to a seminar and was highly, highly intrigued about what the young lady was talking about from the stage. And it was what she was doing was talking about wholesaling. And I never even knew something like that existed. But again, out of desperation, I made one last investment of $1,000 into a program. And I can assure you, when you have $4,000 in the bank and have spent 2 years making every bad financial decision you could, that was some pretty scary stuff. But I made it. And wouldn't you know it, in less than 30 days, I'd flipped my first house, made $8,200, and was kind of off to the races, and was extremely proud that I had done something in an entirely different industry. Didn't know anybody, no relationships, no experience, and had found something that at that moment was really quite intriguing to me, and something that I could actually go and sink my teeth into and make a run at it. So spent the next 18 months flipping over 90 houses, making over $1 million, and was on my way. Fast forward a few years later, I got really passionate about automating what I was doing. I got really passionate about automating it. And the reason why is because I was newly married and my wife was pregnant. We had a new little girl on the way. And I really wanted to spend the time, where it mattered. And the only way that was going to do it is if I got out of the grind, got out of the hustle. And so I got really, really dialed in on turning it into a business, clearly because I'd had the experience in building a big business before, which ironically at that time was extremely unique to real estate investing. Most people looked at it as a hustle. They never looked at it as actually a business that you can run. And it just worked, all the automation, all the systems, all the processes, all the people. Before we knew it, we were flipping several hundred properties a year. That company kind of evolved into a really, really big operation that was until recently called Memphis Invest. And now we've rebranded called REI Nation. And so we still flip roughly 800 properties a year. And have now flipped over 10,000 properties since that time, managed 6,500 properties for investors. And so this little bit of, my darkest moments, I had no idea it would turn into that, which again, as you talked about in the intro, really led me to what I was extremely passionate about is when we were going through and automating and building and, using unique strategies to find properties and work with only cash buyers and not the banks. The timing could not have been perfect, could not have been any more perfect, because when the market melted down in 2008 to 2011, most real estate investors, because that was a real estate driven recession, most were washed up, were cast aside. And ironically, our business grew by leaps and bounds. And that was because we didn't need banks. We were just dealing with affluent people who had cash and wanted to buy properties. And that got a lot of attention. People were like, I don't know what you're doing, but I want to know how to do it. One thing led to another. Before you know it, I was being asked to speak around the country, being asked to train people, coach people, do all that kind of good stuff, and show them the tools we were using that we had developed. And ultimately led me to build Real Estate Worldwide, which has now trained, over 60,000 investors for the last 14 years. And our systems and processes are used all over the world to do real estate. So yeah, something that was really hard and really desperate turned into the blessing of my lifetime, right? Because it's allowed me to go down all the paths I've wanted to go down, both from building a business, but also building a life and helping a lot of other people.
Wow. That's an amazing story, Ken. Wow. So you've been in real estate, gosh, since, how many years now?
January of 2003. So a little over 17 years.
Wow. That's incredible. Now, you moved to California at some point there, right? So you were in Florida for most of your life and then made the move to the West Coast, huh?
You got it. One of the things I became extremely intentional about and passionate about was I had the benefit of experiencing success that most only dream of at a very, very young age, and ultimately losing it all. If that had happened to me at this point in my life, it would be a very different story. But by losing everything by the time I was 30 years old, allowed me to rebuild. But more importantly, it allowed me to rebuild on new terms. And here's what I mean. I had, I was just a product of the way I was brought up and what I knew. And so I was very, very dialed in on building that first business at all costs, at the expense of my family. I took great pride in being the guy that was at the office 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, not leaving till 7 or 8 o'clock at night. I wore it as a badge of honor, like a moron, having no, real perspective on what that was really costing me. And so, as I started rebuilding my life and rebuilding these businesses, I became very, like I said, intentional about never building a business again that didn't serve me. And I want to be congruent. I want to live. I believe life is meant to be lived now, not someday when I retire, that elusive someday, right? That almost never exists. I want to be in the moment today. I want to be experiencing the things that matter today. I want to be experiencing with my friends, my family, my kids, my wife, everybody. And so because that became such a driving force in my life, as I was building my businesses down in California, and as I'm out in Florida, and as I'm traveling the country and doing what I'm doing, I quickly fell in love with San Diego and figured out that as long as I was having a conversation with myself that I will one day move out there and I'll one day do that, that not only was I not congruent with what was really going on inside of me, but I was an ultimate hypocrite. Like, how dare I go out there and tell other people to go after it and chase life and make your dreams come true if I wasn't willing to do it? So about 8 years ago, July of 2012, my wife and I packed everything up and moved our family all the way across the country. And we have been in the exact same neighborhood, exactly where we want to live ever since. And, I don't mind telling you, I have an amazing backyard, which is the Pacific Ocean. I walk out my back door and, can't get a much better view than living directly on the beach. And I walk my little girls to school. I walk to my office every day. I'm a 50-year-old man. And if I'm not walking them, I'm skateboarding with them. So I became extremely, extremely passionate about, just if you have the opportunity to create something and you can do it on your terms, do it. Don't talk about it. Just do it.
I love it. I love it. Wow. Well, you sound like you're not slowing down by any means as well. I mean, you sound like you've definitely realigned your priorities, and your family is definitely where it should be, which is awesome. But you still got quite a big enterprise there, and everything is based in La Jolla. Is that correct?
Well, the investment business is based out of Memphis, Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
But the education business and software businesses, training businesses are all based out of La Jolla, California. Yes. I get the opportunity to buy and sell houses in the 7 or 8 markets that we're in, but I don't have to live there, right? I get to live where I want to live.
You're still, are you actually still buying and selling homes, or are you, now you're really focused primarily on the educational side?
I still participate in the investment business, right? And but I'm not involved in any way from a day-to-day operation at all. My day consists of running the software and education sides of the businesses for sure. Real estate worldwide. 99% of my time is spent inside of those businesses as the CEO. Great.
Well, tell me about sort of the beginning. You mentioned you went to this seminar, and they were teaching how to wholesale, and you went and made that successful first contact. Can you just talk about that first deal, and then what sort of motivated you to want to ramp up and expand your business from there?
Well, the first deal was out of pure desperation, right? I mean, probably like a lot of people when they do their first transaction, they are money hungry, or they're just trying to figure out, how to solve a problem. My problem was that I'd been broke for far too long. I had experienced what it felt like to be on top, and I was as low as I had ever been in my life. And I needed a win. And I saw something and experienced something there that made me feel like there was a possibility here. It was the first time in a long time that I had felt that. And so regardless of my fear, I made the commitment. And big difference between wanting to make it happen and needing to make it happen. I was in a place where I needed to make it happen. And first deal was in Pompano Beach, Florida. I found it off of a classified ad, went out there, had no experience, and basically followed what I had picked up over the course of very brief trainings. But I say this a lot to people, and I completely believe it, that I will take ignorance on fire versus knowledge on ice all day long. And I was the definition of ignorance on fire. I was highly motivated, had no experience and very limited knowledge, but you'd be shocked at what you can do by just putting yourself in the game. And I'm living proof of it, right? So that was one of those deals where I went and got a property under contract, had no idea who the heck I was going to sell it to, didn't know where I was going to take it, but made a few phone calls to people that were advertising in classified ads that were looking for properties, and sure enough, was able to flip a deal and get the entire transaction closed in less than 30 days. In fact, I think it was 22 days if I'm really thinking about it.
So you found the property and the buyer through the classifieds?
Yeah. So again, this is pre-internet, really early on in the internet, not even close to what it is today. There was no Facebook. There wasn't anything like that. But that was the way I did that first deal for sure. Now, quickly, within a matter of months, I knew that was not going to work, that I could never take it to the place I wanted to take it. So I put my branding hat on and started a brand called 1-800-SELL-NOW, started investing in marketing, direct mail specifically, and using direct mail pieces. Back then, I was just mailing absentee owners, which I would never do today, but that's what I was doing. Mailing absentee owners and using my brand 1-800-SELL-NOW and generating a lot of activity. Now, keep in mind, this was before my big epiphany that I could go and do reverse wholesaling. I was just doing exactly what I was taught to do, which was go find the property and then find a buyer. It wasn't until 2 or 3 years in that I had this big eye-opening experience that, listen, I had already done this in the grocery industry. That growth from 1997 to 2000 in the grocery industry, that the arbitrage company, all was a product of a concept that I had come up with because I was a naive kid and just didn't know any better. And the concept was, why don't we go and ask every single one of our buyers, what do you want to buy? How much do you want to buy of it? What price do you want to pay for it? What city do you want me to deliver it in? And when do you want me to deliver it? Effectively, just tell me what you want. And then let me go and work backwards and go create those opportunities and bring them back to you. And that one little strategy, which sounds very much common sense, is very uncommon in that particular industry and is in real estate today now too. But back then, created over $1 billion in annual sales growth just by turning the model around. And so again, back to real estate, I'm sitting here doing it the way I've been taught to do it. I'm 2 or 3 years in, and I'm like, wait a minute, why don't I just go and find all of the buyers? Let me just go talk to everybody who's buying. And who are the people that want to buy multiples? Who are the people that want to buy for investment? Not these guys that are responding to my classified ads or showing up at the RIA clubs or any of that kind of stuff. Why don't I just go start with all the people that have all the money? And so I figured out, just through the process of deduction, just through reasoning, that if I went down to the county clerk's office and looked at every single real estate transaction that happened the week or the month before and simply cross-referenced to see if there was a mortgage or a prom note or a lien recorded against it at the time of closing, well, those were clearly bank finance properties. If there wasn't, there's only one way they could have paid for the property, and that was cash. And so I started building a database. This is everybody that I could see in Broward and Palm Beach counties that were buying houses, and they were clearly paying cash. And I started an outreach program, just started sending these guys a letter and saying, guys and girls, and saying, this is who I am, this is what I do, and why don't we get on the phone, and why don't I go generate opportunities for you? And it just worked. Suddenly, I was playing a very different game than any other investor that I knew, where I was starting with the end in mind. I knew exactly what my buyers wanted to buy. I knew the exact neighborhoods they wanted to buy it in. I knew the exact price they wanted to pay, everything about it. So I was so far ahead of my competition. While my competition was running up and down the streets, putting stuff under contract and hoping that they could flip the house, I was never doing that. I was only putting stuff under contract that I knew really, really well that I could flip it and flip it quickly to a very specific buyer. And that created explosive growth. That's how you scale a business, right? You start with the end in mind and understand clearly the outcome that you're going to get in a predictable way. And like I said, once we turned the model around and started using reverse wholesaling, we were suddenly flipping 200 and 300 houses a year versus 100 every 18 months, and did it right through the recession and still do it today. Like I said, still buying and selling today, just like that.
Now these guys are generally flippers, right? That are buying, right? They're looking for a under market value home that they can rehab and sell. Or
okay, that was the case then. That is certainly not the case today.
Really? Tell me about who's doing it today.
So today, if I was going to I would put the cash buy. Well, first off, you have to take a step back and understand statistically kind of what's going on. As you and I speak today, there will be between $162 billion and $297 billion this year spent in all cash on single-family homes. It'll be 1.3 million properties this year alone, right? So that's roughly, let's just call it 110,000 properties a month nationwide are this type of business, which actually represents about 35% of the market. So it's a huge, huge, disproportionate amount of the market. And again, this is across all real estate transactions that are single-family homes. But the same statistically is true for, multifamily, whatever, right? Commercial is a little different. So you have this huge array of people. And like you said, like you pointed out, most of the guys I was flipping to back then were other investors, fix and flippers. Now you have trillions of dollars sitting in self-directed IRAs. As we're talking today, you got to think about it. You have all this pent-up demand that's been sitting on the sidelines for the last 5 years because the market's been so white hot. There's suddenly millions of people who have trillions of dollars sitting in their self-directed IRAs that suddenly they see this opportunity. These are business owners, the doctor, the dentist, the attorney, the guy that owns the restaurant, the lady that owns the nail salon, in every shape and size, executives, you name it. They have this money sitting there, and they understand that this is their chance to get in on real estate, because it is very likely that we are going to experience some slowdown as soon as the economy kind of, certainly in the housing market, starts slowing down. And the reason it will in all likelihood slow down is because of what is going on. I mean, we have record job loss. We have many businesses that are never going to reopen. And this has been underwritten and subsidized by the government. And that is going to come to an end very quickly, if not by the end of the year, maybe sooner. When that happens, you're going to have a ton of motivated sellers, frustrated landlords who haven't been able to evict their tenants that can't pay. You've got distressed sellers. So what is 35% can easily become a much bigger part of the market. But all of this bottom tier, this C-level cash buyer is sitting, and they've already been buying. They're going to start buying a lot more. Then you kind of have this B buyer, right in the middle. You're kind of looking at it as a pyramid, a much smaller pool of cash buyers, but they have billions of dollars that they operate off every day. These are guys like me. These are fix and flippers. These are guys that run businesses that are paying cash every single day for houses. And by our statistics, we think there's anywhere from 40 to 140,000 of these types of buyers that buy anywhere from 10 to 500 houses every single year, all cash today, that we can statistically see. And then you have the top tier buyer, the A buyers, who didn't exist back, when I started this. And those are the hedge funds, the institutional buyers, the I buyers, Open Door, OfferPad, Zillow, Redfin. I mean, these buyers didn't even exist during the recession. These buyers are new to the game just in the last 10 years, but have an ungodly amount of money. And these are VC institutionally funded entities that are buying tens of thousands of houses, each and every one of them, operating in multiple markets nationwide. So the opportunity to work with cash buyers, when I started it, you're exactly right. It was a very specific type of buyer. Today, it is the wild, wild west. They come in all shapes and sizes.
Fascinating. And I would imagine you have a fair amount of the turnkey people there, probably in that B category. Yeah, which are going crazy in certain places. And one of the areas I invested in is Indianapolis, and there's a lot of turnkey activity there. I'm also in Memphis too.
Yeah, it's a huge part of the business today. So yes, do I think that when I started it, did I have any idea that it would evolve into what it is today? But the math shows us, the statistics show us that this is only growing.
Right. Well, what would you say? You starting out, you definitely jumped in and took what you were taught and put it to work, and were making money. What would you say is sort of your biggest mistake early on that you learned from, and corrected, to move in the direction that you're in now?
Arrogance. For my particular personality type, right? But I see this in a lot of different people, right? I've helped tens of thousands of people over the years now. You may not understand it to be arrogance, but that's exactly what it is. This business has evolved to a place especially in the last 5 years, where the truth is what it is. The data is what it is. We know what the best markets are. We know exactly, who the people that are in distressed situations. We know exactly who the cash buyers are. There is no need to guess anymore. And so the days of believing you know more than you know are over. An investor that is new to the game can be up to speed and a very, very viable and operating in a very logical way in short order, where you used to have to go through 5 or 10 years of hard knocks, or you were going to have to go and invest a great deal of money in coaching and masterminds. Most people would never make those investments, and so ultimately they got ran out of the business. Now, today, if you work with a business coach, or you work inside of a mastermind, or you network with highly high people, you are doing yourself an enormous favor, right? Because your arrogance in thinking of that you have to go through the hits, or that you have to struggle, or you have to go through all the brain damage, or maybe that you're a seasoned investor and then you sit back and operate in this headspace of, well, that's just not the way it is. All of those things can be proven to be either true or false through data. It can all, I mean, there's so much out there mathematically to understand where you just don't have to make the mistakes anymore. My biggest mistake was it took me 3 years to hire my first mentor. It took me 7 years to get into my first mastermind. And now, I'm proud to say I invest hundreds of thousands of dollars every year inside it, continue to do this today inside of my own education. I have some of the best, I would argue I have some of the best peers and colleagues out there inside of my circle. I mean, I don't mind telling you that guys that I run with, like Ed Milet and Jesse Itzler and Steve Weatherford and Roland Frazier, they play at the very highest levels of business. When you humble yourself and realize that everything you need is now available to you, and if you just want to get to the finish line faster, that's totally possible. It will make for a much, much more enjoyable experience. Now, with that, does it take, you can't do any of that without humbling yourself first and understanding that there is clearly proven systems and processes and steps that will work. You just have to be in the right place, the right headspace to take it on. And for a long time, I just wasn't, but I'm glad to say I am now.
That's great. And conversely, what would you say was your biggest success?
Having enough experience, basically 42 years old, to understand that, or let me back up, experience and perspective to understand that life is meant to be lived, and that I could actually build the business to serve me, and that I didn't need to be the guy running around, have my hands in everything, being willing to empower the people around me, give them enough training, give them enough control, give them enough insight to be the guy that take a step back and let the ship run and grow the way it's designed to grow, versus me feeling like I had to be in charge of everything. And ultimately, my reasoning behind that was that I was highly motivated to be the father and the husband that I knew I was capable of being. And I would say that's clearly the biggest achievement I've ever had, is that when I got a second lease on life, I can always improve, but I have been smart enough to be really intentional with the actions I take and clearly understand the outcome I'm looking for.
That's great. That's great. You mentioned finding the buyers, and that was also sort of a key element for you. But what about the distressed owners? Are you just doing some of the traditional things, the bandit signs, or the websites? I mean, how are you doing anything unique in that area, or is that just really a numbers game?
Well, I'll share something with you that works particularly well. But we spend a great deal of money. Before I get to that, we spend a great deal of money on direct seller marketing. Everything we do is data driven. So we understand statistically properties that are vacant anywhere in the market. And then we start to layer other data points over the top of it, a property that is vacant, that's owned by somebody that is out of state, that's over the age of 55. We start to layer these things and kind of increase our probability that we're talking to a real potential distressed seller. And then from there, once we understand that the data that we've got, then we begin executing several different campaigns, trying to effectively surround that prospect. So we will send them direct mail for sure. Then we will absolutely use Facebook retargeting, so that if they're on Facebook or Instagram, they're seeing our ads. And again, we're only talking to the people that we have loaded in to Facebook as a data point. We're not just blindly marketing. We are doing outbound texting, and we are doing outbound calling. And those four things are the things that we not only that we do every day, but are certainly the things we promote to the people around us that they should be doing. We are kind of omnipresent to our prospect at that point. We're sitting in their mailbox, on their kitchen counter. They're seeing us online, and they're getting a phone call or a text from us. And that has been extremely profitable for us over the last few years. Equally, a method that I'll share with your audience is that one thing that I paid very close attention to when all the institutional buyers came into the markets back in, let's just call it 2010. Once they finally realized that all this money that they had sitting on the sidelines, that they could actually get in the real estate game, they came in with a vengeance. The hedge funds, coast to coast, started, big companies were built it felt like overnight. But they didn't know anything about real estate. But yet, virtually overnight, it seemed like every market we were in was suddenly, these institutions were all that anybody was talking about. Oh my God, did you hear that BlackRock is going to spend $50 million in the next 5 years in Memphis, Tennessee, $100 million in Dallas, or Open Doors coming in and they're going to spend $250 million in the next 5 years in Phoenix, Arizona, whatever the case may be. And what I was paying attention to was that they weren't looking for houses. They were selling the money. They were playing into the greed of guys like me and every realtor and every real estate investor in every market I've ever been in. The moment that you and I would certainly fall into the same category, that if an investor picked up the phone today and called you and said, I have $10 million burning a hole in my pocket that I need to spend all cash on houses in the next 30 days. And this is exactly what I'm looking for. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square foot, built after 2005 that I can rent for $1,500 a month. And the most I want to pay for any one of them is $150,000. And I want zero rehab. When they get down into the weeds with you like that, money talks. And the psychology of that is extremely powerful. Because when you do that and you're talking to the right people, those people virtually instantly now work for you because they think they have a whale on. They think they've got somebody that, oh my God, I'm staring $10 million. And if I make 6% commission, I'm looking at a $600,000 payday in the next 30 days. I'm going to go work my tail off and do whatever I can to go generate properties. And so using that same kind of psychology and understanding that the moment that you work with cash buyers, you can do the same. If I go and I have 20 cash buyers that in my conversations with them, all are telling me that they want to spend that they each want to spend $500,000 in the next 30 days on investment properties. And this is exactly what they're looking for in the exact zip codes, et cetera, et cetera. They effectively are, giving me everything I need. It's not hard for me to pick up the phone and start calling other investors. It's not hard for me to pick up and call other realtors and say, I have $10 million I need to spend in the next 30 days, and be very truthful about it. And those, when you realize how powerful that one strategy is, not only with your direct seller marketing are you generating leads, but suddenly your referral network becomes just outlandish. You have every investor, every realtor bringing you deals that fit perfectly into a box that you ultimately know you're going to turn around and flip right back to your buyers. So those are the two things we do, and we do very, very well to generate a ton of opportunities for us.
That's great. Great information. Well, our audience are folks that are 50 years of age and older, and you've just officially joined the Old Dog REI network if you don't know it right now. But but these are folks that are either approaching retirement or already in retirement, and they're really thinking seriously about, am I going to have the cash flow that I really want, that I need to have the retirement that I've been dreaming about all my life. And then you've got those that, hey, they've got that part wired. What they're concerned about is, making that nest egg provide for them and to be able to get good returns on it. So they're kind of all over the board here, but generally, cash flow is of interest, and I think ultimately too that they want to be able to leave that legacy to their children, grandchildren, and so forth. What would you advise people in this position? Because some of them might be thinking, wholesaling, that's a lot of legwork, that's a lot of work. I'm getting ready to retire. I don't want another job. What advice would you have for that group in terms of trying to meet those needs? I know they're kind of diverse there, but
I'll share two very well. I'll share three strategies with you that I think that I employ today and inside of my own investing, and continue to build my portfolio of different asset classes that all are passive to me, right? So you mentioned one earlier, turnkey investing, and that's what we do at REI Nation, and like I said, formerly Memphis Invest. So the 800 properties we sell today are all turnkey, and we manage 6,500 properties for our investors from all over the world. And that business model didn't exist 15 years ago, but it does today. I mean, you can very realistically, as you pointed out, get involved in a market that you're not in. And if you're working with the right turnkey provider, they will manage everything. I mean, A to Z. They will, in our particular organization, we literally do everything. We find the property, we fix the property up, we put a tenant in there for 2 years. Our average tenant stays almost 5 years. We manage it A to Z for you. You own it, but we're managing it. And we sold it to you. We know the house. We understand what's going on in the house. We understand the tenants. We've screened them. You're paying a property management fee, but you're just getting a check every month. And certainly if you're doing that inside of an IRA or a self-directed IRA, you could potentially be doing it in a tax-free environment, just continuing to build wealth there. That's definitely one strategy that I would highly recommend, because there's mountains of benefits to that from a tax perspective and a depreciation perspective. Equally, if you have money sitting on the sidelines, it has never been easier than now to come in and get really comfortable becoming a private lender. And, a lot of people may not really understand that the entire real estate investing world operates off of other people's cash. It is the exception, certainly not the norm. It is the exception where banks are involved. Most of the deals that are going on are private investors that are effectively acting like the bank on properties that the banks would never lend on. They're not even bankable. And if the properties aren't bankable, then the borrower is not bankable. Well, the way that works is behind the scenes, guys like you and me turn around and we loan our money in a secure environment, just like a bank. We are in first position. We are giving you the money at a fixed rate of return. And if you don't pay, we are taking the property back. And we are putting the property in our underwriting to the point where we are protected by the downside on how much we will loan versus what you're doing. If you're taking down a $200,000 piece of property, maybe the only amount I'm going to loan you is the $120,000, whatever it might be. So I'm secure. I'm sitting in a great place. You don't pay me, I'm going to take that house back and I'm going to be in a $200,000 property at $120,000. That has never been easier than right now to do. There are systems and processes, all over the country that can make somebody very, very comfortable, participating in that. And there are now online even organizations where you can just come in even in fractional ways and participate in those types of deals. And so you're not going to be the only, you're going to be one of. And then certainly last but not least, which I'm the most excited about right now, is that as we go into these, tumultuous times, we're at the retail level, we love to hear about mortgage rates that are dropping to record lows and all this, but what's not being shared is that Fannie and Freddie are making it harder than ever for really good borrowers, self-employed people, anybody that is, an entrepreneur that has plenty of cash. It's making it very challenging for them to go off and borrow money on a property, period. So, right now, I think in the last few weeks, the actual lending pool, available people that they would actually lend to, has shrunk by as much as 35% just since March. And so that represents a massive, massive opportunity. There are millions of people that are great borrowers that they are not bankable anymore. So being able to go and buy a property and then turn around and be the bank is such an amazing strategy, and it's a little advanced, but being able to buy a house for $100,000 as a way of giving an example, and effectively selling it to a buyer for $120,000 and requiring them to put 20% down. So now they're handing you a check for $24,000. I'm into that. So now my exposure here is I'm out, $96,000, or I'm sorry, not even 90. I'm out $76,000 because I paid $100,000. I have a $76,000 note that somebody will pay me 8% interest on for the next 30 years. So a deal that I was going to make $20,000 on, now I'm going to make $30,000 on, and it's completely passive. I don't own the house. I am the bank. They're responsible for the taxes, the insurance, the upkeep. Everybody, you think about it. In your primary house today, the bank doesn't take care of your yard. They don't take care of your maintenance. You have a mortgage. You pay a mortgage every month, and the bank just wants to make sure they're getting paid. When you have the ability to be the bank, it is a massive wealth creation tool. And in today's market, that is going to be the strategy for the next 2 years, that smart investors realize that this is an opportunity that most may never see again in their lifetime. Because as the pool is shrinking, you now have, like I said, millions of people who have great credit, great assets, amazing people that cannot go and get the loans that they need to buy houses. So what a great environment to step in if you have the capital to step in and provide that opportunity for them and create real wealth for your family.
You don't have to have any kind of particular license to do that. You're just a private lender, right?
Yeah, you have to use a third party, so it has to be compliant with Dodd-Frank, and there's a third party servicer. So as long as they are handling the transaction for you, which those are all over the country, and the money is kind of coming through them and being deposited in, you're fine all the way around. You don't have to have the license as long as somebody in the transaction does.
Good stuff, man. Really good stuff. Just tell me a little bit. You've got this business that just is multifaceted, and you're in software, you're in all these different areas. What excites you about your business for the future? Where do you see it going?
Like I alluded to earlier, I've become really, one, not only am I passionate about it, but I would argue that I'm fairly good at it, right? I think, this business has the ability to be very simple for people, not easy, but simple. It's straightforward. It's a process. This is, again, extremely data driven now, right? And through the internet and technology and platforms, you can effectively buy and sell houses without ever leaving your house all day long. So when you combine that with good training and good mindset and understand what's really possible, that's really exciting for me, that I have a gift of being able to wake people up, rattle their cages, break things down, keep it very simple for them, and get them into entrepreneurship in a very meaningful way. I'm the product of an entrepreneurial family. And so I was always raised to be an entrepreneur. I was never conned into believing I ever had to go to work for somebody or that I needed to go get a 9 to 5. That was just never who I was. And I didn't realize how big of a gift that was growing up until I was much, much older. Right. And so it excites me that we are on the path and continue to be on the path and will be for a long time of rattling people's cages, helping them understand that it is not only possible, but it is completely doable. And if I can show people how to do that and turn them into entrepreneurs, the ripple effect of that and understanding that their kids are watching them and the legacy that leaves, and that I'm an example of that and a product of that, that's very, very exciting for me, knowing that long after I'm gone, there's going to be could be tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people out there by the time I'm done, that it will be a direct reflection of me helping them in some meaningful way to kind of get out of their own headspace and give them the tools that their kids and maybe even their grandkids are also going to be entrepreneurs.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Wow. Well, time has zipped by here. I'm just, it's too bad because I could probably talk to you for a couple hours here, but I got to respect your time and the time of our listeners here. But we have what we call our wrap it up session now, where I ask you a series of quick questions so you can share resources that have been of value to you, and maybe our folks will hear about things they've never had known about in the past. So if you are ready to go, we can go ahead and wrap it up.
You got it. Let's do it.
All right. Favorite real estate book?
Well, considering that I have a book that just released in the last 24 hours on real estate, I'm obviously going to use it a little self-serving here. I would tell you to go and grab my new book that's out there on Amazon. I've poured a lot of time and effort and energy into sharing my best strategies that are out there. A lot of what we've discussed here, and really kind of break it down, as well as share a lot of my wisdom of being in business for the last 32 years. And I would invite you to go on Amazon and find it. It's The name of the book is called This Shit Works. And then, outside of that, probably the book that I think is kind of the go-to that helps to kind of break down some of the barriers for a lot of people when they're getting into real estate. It would certainly be Rich Dad Poor Dad. I mean, it really kind of helps to stimulate the mind and galvanize some of the thought processes that are definitely required.
How about just general business book, favorite general business book?
The only book I ever recommend, and I'm not even going to tell you it's a business book, right? But I'm going to make sure that my streak stays alive here because it is the most powerful book that I've ever read. And it certainly is applicable to business and in life. It's called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And it is a quick read. It'll take you less than a day, but it has been, the most profound book I've ever read and has helped guide me through business and life like nothing else.
How about most valuable website for success, of course, other than your own website?
Again, I think you can learn a lot. I don't actually participate in Bigger Pockets and the forums out there, but Bigger Pockets is a great resource for real estate investors to get out there and educate themselves in a meaningful way. So if I was going to give anybody a shout out, I would tell you to go there because we get a lot of people that come to us, and that's a huge part of their journey. So they certainly deserve some credit.
Yeah, I agree. How about a favorite app?
Favorite app? I'm a big social media guy, so I'm going to do so. I think that if you are not using social media to improve your personal brand and attract customers to you and help people understand who you are and why you matter, you're probably missing out. I think a lot of people our age discount social media, and I think that is a huge, huge mistake. So whether it is Facebook or whether it is Instagram, I would highly, highly recommend that you get very serious, because you would be really hard pressed to find a place where you could have a bigger impact, both in a personal sense and a professional sense, than those two apps.
Got it. How about a favorite quote?
Actions determine priority, from Gandhi.
All right, good one. And this one, I think you can speak of pretty much from personal experiences. If you lost absolutely everything you've worked your life to build, all gone, all you have in your hand is you've got the knowledge in your head, but in your hand, all you've got is $1,000 in cash. What would you do with that $1,000 to rebuild your real estate investing business?
At that point, it becomes extremely transactional, right? So I would immediately go on to Craigslist and find every, clown that was out there trying to sell their house, effectively wholesalers that are trying to sell their houses and are not very good at it because they're putting properties on Craigslist. And I would understand, that they have a need, and the need is they need buyers. And so I would find out exactly the properties that they have, where they are, and then I would go invest part of that $1,000 in getting bandit signs, Marks a Lot, and the stands, and I would go be putting signs advertising that I have a property I must sell all cash, with my phone number surrounding that property at every major intersection that had a stoplight, and effectively generate the buyers that I need and do a joint venture deal with that wholesaler and go create $5,000 or $10,000 real quick.
Great. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of folks here that want to learn more about what you do and maybe even want to reach you or your business. What's the best way for folks to do that?
I'm really easy to find. It's at Kent Clothier on Instagram and Facebook. Very easy to find there. Or you can just go to kentclothier.com. And I'm happy to join and help anybody that engages through any of those ways. You can also check us out at reww.com, Real Estate Worldwide.
Awesome. Wow. Well, this has been a great interview. There's some fantastic information for people that they can really get their teeth into. So I'm really appreciate it. But we're not over. We're not done yet. We have this tradition here on our show that all of our guests get to close us out with their best old hound dog howl. We are called the old Dogs Network here. So if you are ready, You ready to kind of give us your best hound dog howl or whatever dogs they have down there on La Jolla, this time of year?
Yeah, I don't care. Let's do this.
All right, go for it, man.
How's that?
That was a good one. That was definitely a good one.
I'll pull out with you. I got no problem doing it.
I love it. Well, Kent, I cannot thank you enough for coming on. This has been really great. Good information. Some solid stuff that I think people are really going to love. And thank you for joining us.
You got it, brother. Been my pleasure.
Mine too. And I also want to thank all our old dog listeners out there for joining us. I know there's a lot of other things you could be doing right now, but the fact that you've taken the time to join us means a lot, and we really appreciate it. Please note, everything that Kent talked about today will be just in detail in our show notes. And our show notes are available at the Old Dogs website at olddogsreinetwork.com/blog. And you're going to look for the episode with Kent Clothier. Well, that's the show for today. Remember, cash flow is king and real estate investing the means. Until next time, keep moving forward and may God bless.
Thank you very much for visiting the Old Dogs REI Network. We would greatly appreciate if you would stop by iTunes and let us know what you think of the show. We would love if you could subscribe to the podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and write a review. The more ratings and reviews we receive, the more visible the podcast will be to others. Thank you.